So you create this beautiful joy, then death is much easier when the moment comes. Then you feel it's like, oh, I've enjoyed, I visited nice places, I think I'm dying, but it's all great, So, and then plus we have supporters by the own beliefs. Whenever you believe God or Creator, or so whenever you believe, there's nobody kind of forced. As a Buddhist, we're sub-religion. So you see ourselves, then we're going to say why there's a Buddhas and all the wrathful, peaceful deities, so and so, but they are in the manifestations on our minds. You see, there, if we recognize, then we are already become Buddha. If we don't recognize, then we are suffering.
Welcome back to The Sounds of Sand, presented by Science and Nonduality. Today's guests are authors of a new book out on Sounds True called The Tibetan Book of the Dead for Beginners, A Guide to Living and Dying. And in this episode, we go into the Tibetan Book of the Dead and its cultural significance in the West's death-phobic culture, the connections to dream yoga, what is meant by the Bardo, the history of the Tibetan Book of the Dead, karma and rebirth, and how their new book can support both the living and dying. And the guests today are Venerable Lama Lhanang Rinpoche, who is a teacher in the Vajrayana Buddhist tradition of the Nyingma lineage of Tibetan Buddhism. And he was born in Tibet and currently directs the Jigme Lingma Center in San Diego and teaches throughout the United States and internationally. And the other guest is his co-author, Mordy Levine, who is the president of the Jigme Lingpa Center and the creator of the Meditation Pro Series that has taught meditation to more than 250,000 people. All today on The Sounds of Sand.
Welcome to Science and Nonduality. What is non-duality?
The universal forces.
It's the collective consciousness.
Being aware.
Trauma is not the external event that happens. Trauma is the impact of that event, which is the disconnection from ourselves.
That matter is energy, energy is matter. That's what EMC squared is about.
There's a language without nouns. There is a language without subjugation. There's a language without objectifying.
But if it's recorded, then there is a collapse. But if it's not, then it's the infinite potentiality.
All right, I'm here with Lama Lhanang and Mordy Levine for the Sounds of Sand. Thank you for being here so much. I'm excited to talk about your new book and the story and the tradition of the Tibetan Book of the Dead.
Love to be here. Thanks so much. Thanks for having us here, Michael.
Yeah. So how did you two come together, and what was the genesis of this book?
Well, I met Lama, I guess, about, I think 6 years ago. I was just turning 60 and started thinking about, okay, no longer in my 50s, what's next? And of course, what's next is preparing to die. And I was looking for a teacher and found Lama, very lucky to have found him, studied with him for a number of years. And then, of course, when the pandemic kicked in 2020, you remember the pandemic, don't you, Michael?
I do.
We started seeing a lot of people dying in the streets, right? They had the morgue outside on Fifth Avenue, in Central Park. Mm-hmm. And you see a lot of people dying, very unfortunate. And what was more unfortunate was people were very surprised and didn't know how to deal with it. Families, people who were in the hospital couldn't see each other, touch each other. And we realized that something like this book can really help people and their families prepare to die. Don't wait until you're on your deathbed. It's very difficult at that point. So, and this is not something that we thought of. This great teaching has been around from a great master from, I think it's the 8th or 9th century, Guru Padmasambhava, and Lama Lhanang, who's my teacher, is a master in this century. So what we're able to do is bring this great teaching, this great information to people, Buddhists, non-Buddhists, doesn't really matter. It will be of help to them now until the rest of their lives.
Wonderful. Lama, anything to add to that in the creation of this book, or how you and Mordy worked together on the book?
Not much. So when Mordy asked me we can do this book, and also he started some interviews, then I said yes, because I believe him, because he's a man with the words. When he says, he stays in the words, and also he accomplishes things. And then I say, okay, I will use my broken English. So he and we work together, and then this book comes. So I'm like thinking that this is a very wonderful idea, and this is good for in these times, because anything benefit others. That's why I'm here. So that's why we start, and I'm very, very happy. And I have Mordy, and always he believes me, and things come manifested.
Yeah, so the Tibetan Book of the Dead, I think people in certain contexts know this work, and one of them specifically is in psychedelics, Timothy Leary, and there's this sort of cultural association in the West and the US, perhaps. So how did you deal with this or think about this in the creation of this book?
Well, when you ask most people, have you ever heard of the Tibetan Book of the Dead? Most people say no, and the people that say yes have never read it. Mm-hmm. Not have they never read it, and then there's a group of people that say yes, and I've read it, but then when you actually read some of the translations that are out there in English for the Tibetan Book of the Dead, some of them are very dense, very hard to understand, unless you have an extensive background in Buddhism, extensive background in Tibetan Buddhism, especially. So it's not really comprehensible to your average person. And that was a little upsetting to me, because incredible value on teaching people how to live their lives and how to die and how to be reborn and have an auspicious rebirth. And yet that information just can't get out there. So I wasn't that, and frankly, I'm very aware of the book by Timothy Leary and the psychedelics, and I didn't really, frankly, pay much attention to it, although there's some fun stuff in there for sure, but I went straight to the source. Mm-hmm. The source for me is Lama Lhanang, mm-hmm. and the source is the original manuscript from the 8th century.
Great. And can you talk more about the lineage and the history of this book and its significance in Vajrayana Buddhism?
You want to say something more?
Lama, why don't you talk about that? Would that be okay?
Yeah, that's fine. Yes. In this book is, of course, there are the sources and teachings come from and the Vajrayana Buddhist, the Tantric Buddhist. But this one is not really a deeper Tantric level or Vajrayana level. This is more for kind of anybody wants to follow. Just sort of somebody's non-Buddhist Christianity or Judaism, or whenever they follow the religion. It's like our intention is really wanted to benefit them. And if somebody really wants to sort of deeper connections with in Tantric, somebody study Tantric Buddhist and Vajrayana Buddhist, and then I think it's very good to the Tibetan book when died by Sorje Rinpoche has more information, but you have to understand this. The word is the peaceful deities and wrathful deities. So, and that levels is in I think it's these books for in this day, for even though somebody not a Buddhist, they can just worry about something dying, they can connect with this book. And somebody want to help somebody in there's some support to help. And somebody, I say, if really wanted to know in deeper levels, so they should take first the empowerment and the transmissions, and then study and practice deeper levels of the Galang Zhito and the whole book, and that way really build a beautiful connection with the book, because you see there's in the Shuttle and the six Bardo teachings of the book, somehow there when you are in the state of the dying, there's it's called Sorosirmum Davzigans, like a yellow bird's head holding the bow and arrow. You see, what happens is once there's a lady in Tibet, and then she has a son. The son was practiced how to read the Shuttle book, and he was then. Mother said, "What the yellow birds had holding the bow and arrow? What do to that?" And then said, "Mom, that's the rightful deities. When we are in the Bardo, and we're going to see all the deities appears in our mind. If you recognize, you have chance to free from samsara." Then mother said, "Oh, yellow birds had." She repeated a few times, you see. When the mother died, and then they invite High Lama to do poa. You see, in Tibetans, there's a poa. There's special rituals for transfer the consciousness moment of the death. So this Lama did poa. Then this Lama was doing poa, and in the end he said, "Amazing, I really don't need to do poa because she liberated herself." But when these yellow birds had holding the bow and arrow pierced, that moment this is a Buddha. There's a sort of intimate devotion. That moment she was liberated. So why I'm saying this is, you see, in that case, sort of, if somebody wanted to deeper study, to build into their minds, build into their practice, then definitely tremendous benefit in the others. But this one is like somebody wants to just start with this, and then secondly, deeper, so they can go deeper. So that's just my ideas.
Mm-hmm. Right, so people can read this book and,
they like, they wanted to read the
full,
the book, the big book, and then from there, start.
Beautiful.
Deeper.
Mm-hmm. And is there a connection between Tibetan dream yoga and the Tibetan Book of the Dead in the practices that one can cultivate? I've heard dream yoga sort of described in terms of lucid dreaming. So are there connections there between the Bardo states and the dream states?
There's so many, that's just a big topic you opened up. So there's so many ways we can talk about that. It is in Tibetan Buddhist, we say everything's dream. And our past is already no difference to last night's dream. Our future is dreaming. This is like this moment is kind of enter into the dream state. And that's why why we are suffering here in the samsara is because we don't recognize this is dream. So we have to need to wake up. So in that the cases as well, but also in Tibetan, the book of Live and Die is also they talk about the 6 Bardos. So the dream Bardo, when you study the dream Bardo, is first is you have to recognize dream. Then you have to practice the meditation of dream Bardo to make understand us everything is like a dream, you see. So that's why it's a very important part of these books. So book of Live and Dying has there's a serious teachings of the Dream Bardo. They're connected. Then all the teachings of the Buddha combines in the six Bardos in Vaipama Sambhava.
Right. So there's a bit of a symbolic death that we have each night that we go into this dream space, and it's almost it's like a mini version of the Bardo that we'll face when we go to sleep finally, the final sleep at our death.
Yeah, that's what we call the half of the life is we're sleeping. Half of the life is we think is, this is not dreaming, but actually not really difference. When you are in a dreaming, you never think that's the dreaming. You always have sometimes so mad, sometimes you cry, and even though you wake up, you're really crying. And sometimes it's even though choke ourselves, in the dream, somebody's choking ourselves. So this kind of, the dream is actually what we just say is everything is dream. So, and that's why it's the very, very important part is the dream. Dream part though is very important part to need to study about what is dream. Then you have to be recognized. First, how to practice the dream. Recognize. When you recognize, then also you can work with the dreams. Like when I was a young person, I always kind of looking for good dreams. I wish I can have good dreams. And nowadays, I love bad dreams because it's so much fun and you can use it. Like you fall into water, you go just fall. You go into the water, you can dream state, you can go inside the mountains, you can go to so many things, just sort of fun, Sometimes what I do is like, okay, I sure this is a dream. I touch my bed, like, okay, it's dreaming. Continue to things. So I just regularly just focus on dream is so important. Everything's like a dream, and also teaches you impermanence, and nothing you can really hold like a dream.
Yeah, well, So, I mean, Lama's explanation was phenomenal. The problem is that most people, when they're dreaming, they're so attached to what's going on. They don't know that they're dreaming. They're not aware, which is the same thing in when you're like right now, I'm not sleeping, but most people are not aware of what's happening around them. So thought comes into my mind, I get angry. I don't have control over my emotions, control over my state of mind, because I don't have that clarity. And if I don't have control of my state of mind now, I'm certainly not going to have control of my state of mind when I'm dreaming. Because in order to do some of the dreaming Lama was talking about, you need to be able to dream lucidly and know that you're dreaming. Most people can't. And if you can't do it in the dream state, then when it's time to die and you don't have a physical body anymore, your mind's already out of control, maybe even die angry, then you're certainly not going to be able to have any degree of clarity of your consciousness while you're in the Bardo. And if you don't have it in the Bardo, then when it's time to reborn, maybe your rebirth may not be as auspicious as you would like.
Right now, we have an amazing dream. You see, you're in Philadelphia and Mordy in San Diego. I'm in Mexico. So we are here together one way, but the one way is in the computer. So exactly, it's the daydream and that dream. It's a kind of amazing. And also, actually, last night I had good dreams about my teacher who was taking me beautiful places. So, and that was a good sign for good dreams for this meeting.
Yeah. Well, I didn't intend to talk so much about dreams, but because you mentioned that, Lama, I often have dreams with my deceased loved ones and teachers too. And what is so fascinating is that when you meet them in this dream realm, the waking part of me that knows that they're dead isn't present, and I'm never questioning why they're here. And it's like it's just a great opportunity to meet and be with our ancestors in that dream space. It's almost like there's this timeless realm that this dream Bardo is tapping into that's somehow connected to the past.
Yeah, when you are in a dream state, you can really manifest things, and even though you can, in dream state, you can go to different realms receiving teachings. The dreams is kind of amazing when you know dreams. You can dream state, you can change things, like it just kind of fire turn to water, water turn to fire, or you can do so many things. And the dream state is sort of, so when I was like many years ago, I was have dreams about I'm died. Then I left my body and I can leave, and then I go to visit monasteries, friends, like what they're doing about. And nobody were. I was like, wow, you see, now you die, but you think they're your best friends, but they don't care. So you see, it's kind of also, similarly, sometimes you think his best friend, you're sick. Some people say, I hope he dies soon because he suffered. You see, the value of the friendship, value of the humans. We think sometimes we have this attachment and grasping, but nothing really can hold, or it's like a dream, It is dream, but it's need a big practice. Actually, when you study dream Bardo, you have to dreams about daytime dreaming and nighttime dream. That's where you have to practice.
So I'd like to get into some of the specifics of the book. So something that I would say Western people have a big problem with is dying, obviously. And, we're all dying. We're just at different rates of, no one knows how close they are to death, of course, but our Western culture likes to hide this fact. And how can we use these teachings in the Tibetan Book of the Dead to prepare for death while we're still alive?
There's so many ways we can talk about it, but when person read this book, then realize, you see, the death is a very difficult thing for most Westerners, but the death is also very natural. You see, actually, when you're born, your mother goes to almost die. She's like between Bardo in life. And the baby is also same thing, go through in consciousness. Sometimes it can breathe. So at that way born, right? But people say, oh, congratulations, and people are laughing. The one person, she will say, oh, 70 years old, 80 years old, 90 years old, they die. Then people cry, and the family friends said, please don't die, you see. So what I'm saying is, if you know the death is a peace or nirvana. If you don't know the death is the most difficult place you have to pass in because of our mind. That's why we have to training Like myself, I grew up in Tibet. Many elderly people, they're 60s, 70s, oh, I don't want to work anymore. Just they give it to the papari or business to their children or friends. They go to monastery, they just begin to study and meditating about death and dying. And then you see everybody dies. Most people die in the sitting. And also they say, oh, please don't bother me. 2 days I think I'm dying. And they sit and they die. And sort of, oh, don't worry about me. I'm so happy because I'm just kindness of my Lama, the kindness of I studied the death and dying. So I'm ready to go, you see. And here, I just have countless stories about the people say, I can't die because my business is not finished. I can't die. My family need me. You see, so is these kind of people I meet and I talk to them. Afterwards, I cry myself, like by myself, I meditate crying. Their 70s, 80s now, they ended their life. It's so different. The mind, the sitting and studies make a difference. So that's why I think our wish is people begins to realize this, to accept the death. Like, so, okay, I'm dying, but everybody is born, we all die. You see, not just sort of, I am the one. So it just sort of then creating the joy in the life, what you want to joy to eat, where you want to joy to go, where you want to go on vacations. Also, in Finnish, it is some connections with your friends or family members. You have some problems, you can say, I'm so sorry, make a peace. So you create this beautiful joy. Then death is much easier when the moment comes. Then you feel it's like, oh, I'm enjoyed. I visit nice places. I think I'm dying, but it's all great, you know. So, and then plus we have supporters by the own beliefs. Whenever you believe God or Creator or so whenever you believe, there's nobody kind of forced. As a Buddhist, we're sub-religion. So you see ourselves, then we're going to say why there's a Buddhas and all the wrathful, peaceful deities, so and so, but they are in the manifestation on our minds. You see, there, if we recognize, then we are already become Buddha. If we don't recognize, then we are suffer.
Yeah, I think there's also, people see the title, Tibetan Book of Living and Dying, you say, gee, I'm 25, 30 years old, 40 years old. I'm not going to die for another 20, 30 years. I'm going to read that book when I'm ready to die. Or 5 years, everyone thinks when you're younger, we're going to be around a while. And in the Western world, everything around us we think is also going to be in my house. Everything's very solid. My sense of self and who I am, very solid. I have all these attachments to money, I have all these fears, things like that. And what the West is wonderful at doing is it lets us get around our fears. Fear of pain, oh, we have medication for that. Fear of dying, I'm going to distract myself with something else. And the problem with that type of mentality is people are not happy as a result of that, because the fact of the matter is not everything is solid. Everything's impermanent. So we get attached to something and then it's gone. So we suffer, we have pain, we're disappointed. So we need to learn how to do more of what Lama is talking about, how to feel joy, recognize that everything is impermanent, including ourselves. That gives us a sense of freedom. It gives us a sense of joy. And that can continue on until the day we die, whether we die tomorrow or 10, 20, 30, 40 years. So it's really a book that shows people how to live their lives, not just happy, but with a sense of freedom and liberation now. And that continues to the next moment, the next moment, the next day, the next month, the next year, until you die.
So I want to couple things. One, So yes, I think as the way I see is in Western world is most people say, "Oh, okay, I went on to retire, then I will going to live in so and so place, then I'm really going to enjoy myself. I will going to do something, and then 5 years, 10 years." Then one day they think is I'm on the bed and going to like 100 years old, then I'm going to die. Like sort of, they have these beautiful dreams. That's is nice, but then same time when the really difficult terms of sickness or somebody comes, then very hard time to accept that. The acceptance makes a difference. Like for example, I just wanted to share with you this story, true story, but there's and I used to go to Canada every year. I went to Canada and I do sometimes just healing touches, put my hands and do some mantras and this kind of healings. And then this lady come for healing and I'll do the healing. And she says, "Oh, Lama, I'm kind of die any moment." And I said, "How come? You look healthy. You're a nice lady. I don't think you die. She said, "Oh, 6 years ago, I went to the doctor. They said, "Oh, cancer is over you. So you're going to be die in the 6 months, like shortest 2 months and longest 6 months." That day she went to her boss saying, "I don't want to work anymore." The boss upset, said, "Why you didn't tell me in like at least to give me months?" She said, "I don't have choice." Then she told the story. Then boss apologized. So then she go home and she called her girlfriend and said, "Only I have 6 months. So you want to go to Thailand and somewhere she want to go vacation." Some friends say, "Oh, I don't have money." She said, "I'll buy a ticket because I have some savings." And she said, then I just that moment, I said, "Okay, I'm die any moment." She just enjoys. She said, "Okay, now I'm 6 years later, still I'm here. I can die any moment, but I'm happy. I'm ready to die." You see, it's so beautiful. Then 1 year later, I went back to Canada. And then she called the family I stayed. Then they said, "Oh, she called you yesterday, say she need to meet me." I said, "Okay." She says, and she's dying. So the next day they said, "You want to go?" I said, "If you drive me, yes, I want to go because she's calling yesterday. That's the karma. Somehow there's karma connection. I want to go." Then when I went, she was in the living room. She says, "Thank you, Lama. You're my guardian angel." So then she told her husband, her daughter, said, "Please go out." Then she said, "What's like a death? Like what's going to happen to our senses and what happens to our mind and blah, blah, blah." She asked me all these details. And I tried to answer much as I can. The end, she's like, "You have Tibetan Buddhist prayer, somebody's dying." I said, "Yes." And I said, "Are you sure you're dying?" She said, "Yes, now 7 years I live. And I know now I'm dying. I know. Please, can you do that prayer?" I said, "Okay." Then I did the powa. She called her family coming in. She told the daughters, "Okay, my horse, give it to you." Then she jewelries, given her girlfriends, everything given away. Her husband was, "These some things belong to your grandma. You want to give it away?" She said, "I'm dying. I don't need anything, just sort of giving." Then husband and daughters, they want to meet me in another room. They're like, "What we do? She's going crazy. She was doing this start in the car yesterday. So what we do?" I said, and in my mind, I don't think she's going to die. Just she was eating, talking. And I said, it doesn't matter. You have to love her, support her whenever her wishes. That's you do. And that was my advice. Then she's like, "Oh, I want to drink milk today. My last day, so the organic milk, so and so." "Oh, okay, I want to eat some fresh vegetables." "Oh, can you play my favorite music?" So she was doing all these things. I was there. And then I left, and the next morning they called me. She passed away in the morning when sunrise. So you see, she accepted, and she's ready, then in so beautiful way she dies. Like a sort of, I saw her, like in the 2 years, the role was the amazing and kind of way I can see the difference. So then another time I was in Tijuana, there's one man was, I think, a businessman, and a bunch of cars, a bunch of people brought this man to me for healing. And the doctor told him, say, only 2 months to live. And he was grabbing me. So, I heard you're a good healer. Can you save me? My family needs me. My business needs me. Like grabbing me, like not let go. And I'm just like, calm, relax. I try to talk to, but he can't hear nothing what I say. So when they left, I was crying. So anyway, I'm sorry about it takes so long to put those stories, but I thought maybe something kind of connection.
Yeah, it helps people relate, to hear these stories of,
those two stories.
Yeah, and there's a quote that opens the book from you, Lama, that the past is history, the future is mystery, and the present moment is a gift. And I love these stories and what you're talking about, both of you, that when there's an acceptance that there's a temporal end to this incarnation, joy and gratitude and love spring forth. To say the present moment is a gift, they say the average human lives 2 or 3 billion seconds. So it's like we've been given 2 or 3 billion gifts in this life, each second, each precious moment. So yeah, I mean, what else would there be but joy and gratitude for this time that we have when we see it in that context, that there's a finality to it. This incarnation of our lives.
Yes, thank you. Mm-hmm. Yeah, we are here as the same reasons. We would play music and different things and meditation. 20 years the meditation study Buddha Dharma. And we are also same reasons we are here. That's why, and long time ago in the space, really connected. Now through the computer. Mm-hmm. One day maybe in a person we are having tea and laughing.
I would love that, yeah. Yeah, you mentioned music. So one thing I wanted to ask about was, so a translation of the Tibetan Book of the Dead is the great liberation by hearing during the intermediate state. I mentioned to you, Lama, earlier that I was a musician, and one thing I've focused my music on is music for people in hospice, so people that are dying. And I was in a program called Music for Healing and Transition program, where I would play music at the bedside of people who were dying, and often the people were unconscious. Their eyes were closed. They were breathing very shallowly. Sometimes they were right on that threshold between life and death, but we were always taught in my program that people are hearing, and the hearing is the last sense to go. So to keep the music going, keep the peaceful energy as a way to allow the body to let go and allow that transition to happen to what's next and what's beyond. And so what's the relationship between hearing and the Tibetan Book of the Dead?
That is, of course, Tudor is somebody's really focused with the body, speech, and mind, with the devotion. Then you hear the meaning, then ultimately liberates you. So that's why they're called Tudor. And the Tudor means like you hear that. But just only you like hear glimpse or just few words or so. Oh, okay, somebody's reading. It's not really something there, but you have to be completely listening. So in the Buddha Dharma tradition is also, we are in as a Buddhist, the Buddha's teachings is the three wisdoms, and hearing, and also investigation, and the practice, meditation. So first you have to hearing clearly to follow Buddha Dharma. What Buddha Dharma means? Sometimes people think, oh, Buddha somewhere India, da. But the truth is, we understand, oh, I heard the teachings of the Buddha is a person within me. You see, the hearing, then you can sort of describe into investigating and study, then you can see as the wisdom and compassion is we are many lifetimes. In this lifetime, we are born with it. We don't need to go somewhere. We just kind of start. So that's why we have to realize, investigating and study. Then we meditate in practice. Then we are inseparable. So exactly, the hearing is very, very important, because sometimes some people, they don't hear the begin. They say, they don't hear the begin, but they just sort of what they hear, they think is like in the news and media, they just pick up one part. It's like, but the story have to be completely. So that's why it's the same as in music. The peaceful music makes us relax. When the relaxes, your channels, nerves, everything kind of opens. Then it's easy to liberate your soul, or Westerners call soul, and in Tibetan Buddhists we call consciousness. The consciousness, the consciousness living very easily. So the music gives the relaxation. And also somebody's dying, it's also, you give hug. It's a beautiful gift, saying, I love you, don't worry about us, just connect with the God or whatever the beliefs. And then automatically the person feels great and liberated. It's like once my friend, he went to the hospital intensive care. He said he was there 3 weeks, and the next bed, there's an older man was dying. But the nurses, they come, they said, oh, he's still alive. Oh, he's still not died. Like they talk like that. But one day, young nurse lady comes. She come and just give hug. This old man don't have family members come. She hugs, say, we love you. The angels, guardians there for you. She was just talking to his ears, and like 5-10 minutes she hugged, and then she left. 5-10 minutes he died. Like he just hear these beautiful words with this beautiful youth, this beautiful girl hugs him, and he said, I saw angel real angel. The North, young Norse was a real angel. So the exactly same way, you see somebody is suffering, sad or mad, you hear beautiful music, they like rather than forget the sadness, they liberate us, our minds. That's why it's very important, music. But also, music can be very sad music. It can be mad music. You see, there's all, especially rock and roll or the Western world music. Some all you can, which way you want to create the music. You want to relaxation with the beautiful music, with the meditation. It's so beautiful way. We need a sound and we need a view to relaxation for relative world to easy to meditate.
Beautiful, thank you. Yeah, the intention with which music is created obviously is very important.
Yeah, if somebody's dying, you just beautiful music. You think about, okay, this person died. I hope he's relaxed and he going to find the peace. And also this music, not just we think is all this the nothing here, but actually full of life. In the everything is full of life. You just play music to benefit for all these the consciousness world. This like atoms like a world. And also through the meditation, you can this music benefit for all the beings in the six realms in the universe. So you see, so beautiful way to benefit others through the music too. Music is also can be, mantra of compassion. Music be any mantra. You can just doing the mantra through silently and play with the music with the sound. Become all the sound is the mantra in music. So there's so many ways we can talk about sounds. So sounds make a difference in just like a smile. You see one person smile, you see the morning you walk in somewhere, you see person smile you, then you feel some warm, just something you never forget. Somebody so sad, man, it gives you a cold face, then you feel like, oh, the kind of the energy is how you give, how you receive. If for somebody so like a Buddhist, there doesn't matter which you sound or which thing you see, it doesn't matter who doing things. It's matter is you how you receive.
Right. Yeah, it's interesting too because the parts of the Tibetan Book of the Dead that I've read are very visual. So there's a lot of description of deities and colors, and I think maybe this is why it got an association with psychedelics.
There's a lot of sounds too.
There is sounds. Okay, that's what I was going to ask.
And all this difference in the psychedelics and things with the substance, like the ancient shamans and native medicine men, they introduce people to connect with the spirit world. And this is naturally in the manifestations of the enlightened world of the wrathful deities and peaceful deities. That's the difference. See, one is naturally, one is through the substance. And once I was talk about this subject, and one young man said, "Oh, you talk about the not bad about the drugs and things, but all the native shamans, medicine men, they use it." Then my answer is, "Are you your shaman or are you Native American? Are you they use for rituals to connect with the people to spirit world? This four world is of the native believers. Are you doing that or you use your own weakness?" That's the difference is. So anything is how you use it, but that's a difference is through meditation to really the moment of death to you can through all the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas you can recognize this is like opening all the mandalas in the mandalas within. That's why we have the seeds of the good, seeds of bad is within ourselves. Which seeds we wanted to nurture That's a make a difference. You see, you want to nurture the enlightened world, then you have to use the wisdom, compassion, loving kindness through the meditation and training the peace. Or you want to be nurtured the negativity, then just like I want to be vain. I want to like you see the right now war in Russia and Ukraine. Like you see the politicians, they only care about money and they don't care about people's lives. You see difference. So the heart depends we have both cells or seeds within our mind. Mm-hmm. So how we want to work.
Yeah.
We have the choice.
Thank you. In the beginning of the book, you talk about karma and rebirth, and maybe this is a question for Mordy, that in so-called secular Buddhism, or the sort of Americanized version of Buddhism, I find that many people are very willing to accept basically all of the Buddha's teachings, so about compassion and kindness and the importance of mindfulness and, you know, basically all of the steps of the Eightfold Noble Path. But they often... so-called secular Buddhists will say no to karma and rebirth. They'll say, no, this is nonsense. It's magic. There's no way to prove it. There's no scientific, there's no rational way to prove karma and rebirth. But could you talk about how central karma and rebirth actually are, especially when we talk about the context of the Tibetan Book of the Dead and the totality of the Dharma?
Yeah, it's a great question. So let's just talk briefly about karma. If I were to go and punch someone in the face, that person's going to punch me back. Okay, so as soon as that happens, I start to believe in karma. It's very simple. And I think most Americans, not just Buddhists, believe in karma to some degree. Oh, that person, he had it coming. Or, that's because I did this. I yell at you, you yell at me. If I yell at you, I'm more likely to yell at you again. And I'm more likely to live in a house where there's a lot of yelling going on. So this is what karma means. It's very, very basic level. And I think most people would agree with that. And why is that important? That's important because from the perspective of living happily, I have to break that habit now. Because if I don't break that habit, I'm going to keep yelling. And people are going to keep yelling at me. And I'm going to be in an environment where there's a lot of yelling going on. So we have to break that habit. And another word for karma, which people don't know, karma means action. A lot of people know that. That's wonderful. But karma can also mean habits. And so we have these habits that if we don't break them, they're just going to be with us, not just through now, but through the Bardo and the next lifetime. So karma is very important to understand that if you want to be happy. Now let's talk about how, you mentioned about people don't believe in rebirth. Yeah, no, I understand that. That might be difficult, and people may not believe in afterlife. And in fact, in many Buddhist communities, they don't even talk about rebirth. They don't talk about the afterlife. They don't talk about, and that's fine, no problem. People believe it, great. If they don't believe it, that's okay. My personal feeling is I believe in science. And I think the Dalai Lama says that as well. He's very big on believing, you can prove it to me scientifically, I'm there. And at this point in time, there is so much data out there on near-death experiences, on people who have died and then come back 10 minutes later, a day later, 2 days, weeks later, and they're alive. And what their experience was like in that Bardo, in that afterlife. So that's one, piece of evidence that I like to look to for myself. The other piece is right now there's thousands of children out there, and adults too, but mostly children who remember what their previous lives were like. And so when I kind of look at all that and I hear it and I watch these children speak about what their experience was like in a previous lifetime, for me personally, it's very easy to believe in an afterlife and a rebirth. But even if you don't believe in that, that's okay. You know, we want people to have the opportunity to have a happy life and a liberated and a free life now, today, the rest of their lives. And the practices that of course Lama Lhanang teaches us, and that Guru Rinpoche, who is the original author of the book, teaches us, that's what they're there for. It's not just, oh, when you die, do this and you'll be okay. I wish it were that easy. It's no, if you know, in preparation for dying, here are these wonderful practices and teachings that will allow you to feel free, liberated, and happy now. And that will continue on in the next moments, days, months, years, until you pass.
Wonderful. Thank you. Yeah, it seems as a theme that has come up today, and perhaps this is one of the many things you can take away from the wisdom of this book, is surrender. So I often think of karma and rebirth as an act of surrender, of saying, you know, I don't understand the universe. I don't understand the mystery by which I have a consciousness and I go to sleep at night, I go into this dream world, and somehow the consciousness in me continues to the next day. Like, that to me is as strange as rebirth or anything in Buddhist cosmology. You know, it's just, we get accustomed to things, so, you know, we kind of take it for granted. But yeah.
Yeah, the karma is, you see, instant karma.
Mm-hmm.
Just Mordy study, if you punch somebody with a punch back, it's like that. It's obvious, like instant karma.
Yeah.
There's some karma is that last lifetime comes in this life.
Mm-hmm.
And some karma, even though many lifetimes karma come in this lifetime. So, but the karma, everybody wants to have good karma, and we want to skip the bad karma. But the karma is like birds fly in a high part of the sky. When you look, you don't see the shadow of the birds because they fly so high. But the birds land, then you can't get rid of the shadow. Exactly, the karma is like a shadow. Mm-hmm. The karma is, the seeds of the karma is our mind, not actions. Even though person doing like a sort of, for example, somebody giving like feed to the lot of homeless. Wow, he's doing some good karma. And it's amazing, but karma grows from the motivation. The motivation. This person's motivation is, oh, I have some money, I have some abundance, I want to help benefit others. That's the kind of motivation we needed. But some think is, oh, I'm rich. People think I'm good person. You see in Mexico, sometimes the politicians, the election comes, they buy a lot of rice and buy things in poor neighborhoods. They give a lot, but they want to be the election. That's why they do it. You see, exactly karma in the depends. Also, therefore, the mind. Maybe sometimes we kill something, we did something. It's obvious. We think it's bad karma, but sometimes you're in your bed or you're sitting in your sofa, we create bad karmas. We look at the politician or somebody in the television, we like, I wish somebody kill him or kill her. And we really think that. We really put into this karmic world. That means truly we create bad karma. That's why even though there's somebody doing bad or thing, only send love and prayers. And what does is, if you wish to somebody kill and you're mad, actually you're not hurting that politician, it's hurting yourself. You see, you're the one mad. You're the one mad, then actually hurting your partner too, because your partner feels you're mad. Your children feel too, your friend feels too. So you carrying also same negative energy as that person. So when you carry the love and kindness, just praying and sending the love and kindness and wisdom to this person, politician or person, then automatically actually once this love and kindness and wisdom rises in your heart, then your partner feels, your family feels. So it's a karma is kind of obvious these days. So many children remembers, even though some children have problems with neck, they have breathing problem because pre karma somebody cut their neck. That's still carrying some. Anyway, there's this kind of now scientific people, all the religious they believe is afterlife. And the Buddhist is long time ago, so Buddha told it's like only we just lose this body, but the body is like a clothes. Every day change, you go to work every day, you dress up different ways, but you're same person. The same way, when you die, you can take your family or your wealth or your home or car, but who's you go with you is karma. So the karma is, there's so many ways we can talk about the karma of the body, karma of the speech, karma of the mind. The king of the karma is our mind.
Sorry, I'm enjoying the wind chimes at your space too, Lama. That's why I pause often. I listen to the wind chimes.
Yeah, musician.
Yeah.
Wonderful.
Yeah. Anything else that you would like to say about the book? So it's coming out in July, is that correct?
June 27th.
June 27th. Okay, cool.
We're having a big party to celebrate that.
Nice. Yeah, and it's a wonderful book. I think the For Beginners part of the title will invite a lot of people who maybe know the title or they've heard of it in different contexts, but it's a great entryway. And I love the appendices too, these practices you have for developing wisdom and compassion, and just these little portals to go deeper. So there's a lot of places in the book where people, if they want to go deeper, they can research and go to the sources that you've cited in the book. So best of luck with the book, and congratulations on writing it and your partnership together. And thank you so much for being on the podcast today.
Oh, thank you. You're also, you see, automatically, you karmically, you're part of that too. So thank you for doing this interview.
Thank you very much, Michael. We really appreciate getting the word out because we think it's going to help be a benefit to a lot of people, and that would be magnificent.
And thank you for listening to The Sounds of Sand. We invite you to explore more of our talks, dialogues, videos, articles, events, and offerings through our website, scienceandnonduality.com. If you've enjoyed this conversation, please consider becoming a member to access our massive library of Sand content, available exclusively to Sand members. And we would love it if you could leave us a review on Apple Podcasts, Google, and Spotify, and share this episode with your family, friends, and all sentient beings. Be well.